Hello, magic makers, and welcome back to the Metaphysical Apothecary. We are your hosts, Shannon and Megan.
Hi, everyone.
Also known as the Scorpio Sisters, here to explore the mysterious, the magical, and the arcane.
And of course, no learning experience would be complete, especially in the pagan community, without a journal.
Also something I'm really bad at.
I think many of us have a lot of very beautiful blank journals laying around. When you're doing any of these exercises or you come up with an exercise of your own, it's very helpful to block out in a journal sections or a couple of pages for each card, and then you can put down your impressions of each card as you work through them, or as you pull them for a daily reading, or as you read for other people. Take notes and then study those notes and look at them, and you'll find patterns. They will appear. So there are also more advanced ways to study your deck. So when you become a more experienced card slinger and you start collecting more decks, or you just have one that's a favorite, you've started maybe reading more professionally or creating your own spreads, things of that nature, there are ways to develop an even more intimate bond with your tarot deck. One of my favorite ways to do this is to compare and contrast the same cards in each suit. So you would pull the 4 aces, the 4 queens, the 4 sevens, the four pages, etc., and set them up together as if they're having dinner together, and compare and contrast them. So you've got the 4 queens, for instance, and you think about each of these women and what they must be like, and how that relates back to the symbolism in their suit, the symbolism in the card. If you see the Queen of Pentacles, for instance, as being very cold and reserved and very austere, what about the card is giving you that impression of her energy? And how might that both be a flaw and a virtue for her?
A strength and a weakness.
Yes.
I like including the corresponding major arcana number. So I would put death with them as well and try to correlate how the 13th major arcana card correlates with the 13th card in any suit, which is the queen. Understanding how change and beginnings and endings are also a part of the queen's nature, whether she fights them or she embraces them.
Exactly.
I've been studying tarot since I was 12, 13. I'm still studying tarot cards and still getting more in depth with them, and I find more advanced ways in order to study. And one of the most recent ones that I've been doing is looking at the Roman numerals of the cards, particularly in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, because that is one of the more popular, oldest card decks that we have, and looking at the number and the shape of the number and seeing how that shape actually correlates with the meaning of the card, and how the card meaning is significantly placed with that number. So the Fool is a 0. Zeros are circles. The Fool is the beginning and the end. He travels in a circle through the major arcana, where he starts you off with him on his spontaneous journey with playful nature and maybe trickery along the way. And he goes with you through each and every card. It's a circular journey or a spiraling journey where you continuously go back to the Fool card and then restart this journey, restart the understanding of the major arcana. And that 0 is significant for the Fool because it's a circle. He is traveling a circular spiraling path.
That maybe the Hierophant would be another good example with the funnel.
Okay. So I've come across a correlation with the Hierophant and the V5. The Hierophant is not a card I'm particularly fond of. It's not my least favorite card, but it is a card that I find trouble relating to or trusting, depending on the deck. 5 is actually what made me understand the Hierophant so much better, and in particular the Roman numeral 5, the V. When you look at the V, it looks like a funnel. And what it represents is information from cosmos, from universe, from something higher than the self, being funneled down into a particular person, and that person is the filter of who is providing information. So the information is out there for everyone to receive. The Hierophant is the one who then speaks through his or her own filter. And it's not bad, it's not good, it just is. He is projecting his own filter or her own filter on the world and providing the information as he understands it, because the brain is a filter. His perspective is going to be different than everyone else's perspective because all of our perspectives are different, and thus his filter is different. The Hierophant and the Roman numeral 5, the V, is the funnel for cosmic energy and cosmic information brought down to the human level and shared.
Mm-hmm. Looking at the symbols and assigning your own particular meanings to symbols, to all of the aspects of your tarot cards. Another way to perform advanced study on your tarot deck is to just go through and see if the energy of any of the cards reminds you of people in your life, your favorite fictional characters. Some examples from me are in the deck that I use, which is Shadowscapes. Strength represents my wife Sam. Not only does the figure in the card look like her, the act of very gently and composedly directing the energy of the lion creature in the card, that's just how she rolls. She has this aura of power and self-possession about her, but she doesn't use it to harm people. She's a registered black belt and is a natural leader, but she doesn't ever abuse her authority. If somebody else wants to speak, she's going to let them. As for other cards in the Shadowscapes, Shannon is actually represented by the Page of Wands for me. So the Page of Wands, if you look at the card, it's a woman wearing a beautiful orange and red corseted dress, playing a violin, surrounded by foxes at her feet. And if there is an image that suits Shannon better, I'm not sure what it is, unless it is associated with the dragon in some way. She plays the violin. Shannon's connected to fire. She enjoys working a little bit with kitsune energy, fox energy, trickster energy, don't you? You slither in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am represented in my Shadowscapes deck by the Fool, but also the Magician. So the Magician for me is sort of it's a someday archetype, whereas immediately right now I exude the Fool energy. And there are a few other people in my life who are represented in the deck as well, but we can also associate some of our favorite fictional characters with these cards to help us understand the energy a little bit better. Anyone who's seen The Magicians or read The Magicians knows about Quentin Coldwater. He's one of my very favorite fictional characters ever. And for me, he is represented by magician energy, because he has to learn to balance the elements inside of him. And when you see the magician is always balancing the 4 elements above and below, always learning, always pulling in new information and pushing it back out into the world as something better, or what the magician perceives as better, at least. And that's very Quentin Coldwater. If you're a fan of another popular series, such as The Chronicles of Narnia or Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, any other series that has a wide cast of characters, sit down with your favorite characters and your favorite tarot deck and see if there are correspondences, see if they cross over. And that could be a really interesting journaling experience as well.
Yeah, I do this with Marvel characters. I have obviously a wide range of characters to choose from, and I have basically marked it out. Each character has their own card association, and Magician is Doctor Strange.
Which makes a lot of sense.
He is constantly in the balance between learning and doing. And then he always goes back to learning. He's not really a teacher. He's usually learning about a new metaphysical concept and then learning how to apply it and then applying it. Whether or not people want him to apply it is a totally different conundrum. But it's something that the magician does really well. He balances himself between the state of learning and the state of doing.
And that's something that Quentin Coldwater does too. Throughout his story arc, he begins as a student and very quickly encounters situations that require him to apply the little knowledge that he's learned so far. Another way to do some advanced learning, meditate and visualize yourself as each of the main figures in the major arcana, the fool, the magician, etc., and determine how facets of your personality and experience reflect those cards' meanings in your life. Because it's a journey. As Shannon stated earlier, you start with a fool and you go down to the world and you begin again with the fool. So we all have within us at least a sliver of each of those cards that could be associated with different aspects of our personalities or our lives or the way that we pattern things emotionally. So it could be an interesting way both to do shadow work and to learn more about your tarot deck. If you're having trouble learning a grumpy deck, you can compare the same card across multiple decks. So if the Queen of Swords gives you trouble, grab the Queen of Swords card from each of the decks that you have, or compare them to a best friend's deck, and just lay them out and see how they relate to each other.
Mm-hmm. Now, how to deal with a negative or grumpy deck.
So, it's as we discussed earlier, different decks will have different personalities. Tarot is especially prone to being very blunt or even sometimes harsh. So when you're dealing with a grumpy deck, it's important to sit down and really develop the relationship with it. It's like you're dealing with a skittish or kind of angry cat. The creature or that energy isn't lashing out because it's just bad. There's something there that you're not understanding that is crucial to that relationship. One of the ways you can deal with a grumpy or a negative prickly deck is to ask it what it wants. The readings that this particular deck does best may not correspond with traditional reading methods. If you're trying to do any of the traditionals and the deck just doesn't seem to be giving off good energy, if it's resisting, try different patterns. Try throwing the cards on the floor and flipping them over at random. Try putting them in a spiral. Just try different things to see what the deck responds to.
Mm-hmm. Another possibility is that it doesn't want to be read for personal divination.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little sensitive to the individual's inclination towards what they think they want and refuses to talk about that.
Yep.
And would rather talk about more broad general energy that's happening during this time period that we happen to be in, and will read really well the energy that's happening in the world.
Yep. It might be more of a broad reading deck than a personal reading deck.
And that goes along with not resisting the reading that's coming up. Sometimes decks get grumpy because the person that you're either reading for or you yourself, the reader, is reluctant or resisting giving the message that they are providing to you. Maybe you're not using the right words because you're trying to be nice about it, or you yourself don't want to look at the prickly pieces of your own path and your own reading, and the deck of cards gets grumpy every time you use them.
Yes. Make sure that you're being honest in your reading with yourself, with others, etc. So if it's a new deck, or even if it's a deck you've had for a while but haven't interacted with a lot, clearing the energy in some way and getting it used to yours could be a good way to bond with the deck. Maybe it just takes a little bit more effort with that particular energy. You could sleep with it in your pillowcase or put between the mattress and the headboard if that's a safe place for it to be. Just have it in the bed with you when you're sleeping so that you can acclimate to each other. You can cleanse it with selenite to help clear any old energies, especially if it's been gifted to you. Give it a good energy cleanse because it still might be holding on to some of the energy from the former owner. Or if you don't have selenite, quartz crystal is a stand-in for any crystal.
Amethyst is really good too.
Mm-hmm.
As Megan mentioned earlier, we'll play solitaire with that deck to cleanse it of its grumpiness.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's all the deck energy is looking for, is to be handled. You've ignored it for too long and it's feeling isolated.
Yeah, it's feeling neglected.
Yes. And so you just need to give it some time and attention, and playing solitaire is a good way of giving it that attention. It also allows for the tarot to go back to its original purpose, which was playing a game, being fun, having fun.
Mm-hmm.
and let's release all this grumpy, heavy, and adult energy.
If you feel like the cards really need an oomph, like they just really need that reset, like sometimes we just need a break. We just need to completely reset that energy. You can either place them inside or place them next to a Tibetan singing bowl and play it. You can expose them to binaural beats or solfeggio frequencies to help just really clear the energy and bring them back to center.
You can put the prickly deck in a crystal grid.
Once you've learned your deck, you've bonded with your deck, you've done some advanced study, you've, cleared your energy and the deck's energy, and everything is beautiful, there are many possibilities for using your tarot deck and your oracle decks for things other than readings. There are lots of magical things that you can do with these cards. You can use your tarot cards as part of a crystal grid or a mandala around a spell or as part of a working. This is especially lovely if you have any mini decks. If you're trying to squeeze a few more cards in there, if you have a mini deck, they're perfect for this. You can create a tarot card labyrinth where you create sort of a dotted line with the cards in a path around your home or around a space that's sacred to you or even on the astral, and you can walk through the cards. You can path work through the cards one after another in a narrative. And you can also lay the cards out in a particular sigil or glyph to create a symbol that is sacred to you.
Or you could lay them in a circle and actually use them as your circle cast.
Yes, you absolutely can do that as well.
If you're casting and you want to have a physical boundary, you within a circle, you take your deck of cards or several decks of cards and lay them out one at a time, calling on those guardians as you lay down the cards. And you can either leave the cards in between the cardinal points, face down or face up, depending on the energy you want.
This could also be an interesting way to lay down a circle for a ritual that you're not entirely sure what the purpose is. You just know that you need to do something.
Yeah.
So laying a circle of tarot cards could help guide what kind of energy you need. If you are doing a working on yourself, whether it's a healing or another person, whether it's a healing or a journey to another dimension or the astral or inside your own psyche, you can lay the tarot cards out in an ellipsis shape with crystals, with other things that you would put in a crystal grid or in a mandala, and lay down inside of it. It can be an extremely effective way to channel energy. In addition to laying yourself or the person being healed bodily in the ellipsis, you can also arrange a healing grid with tarot around poppet or a spirit doll, or you can choose the tarot card that represents that person, such as if I was healing my wife, I would choose the strength card and build the mandala or healing grid around that as well.
Mm-hmm. One way that might be extremely beneficial to your workings is if you have trace paper or you just use a regular piece of paper, lay it over the image of the card and allow your intuition to tell you what parts of the card are significant in this particular working. Put a dot there or draw a circle on them and start drawing lines until you find the lines that feel the most right for that spell working. And you can have another type of sigil or glyph.
Yeah, it's almost like creating a personal constellation based on the tarot figures.
Yes.
So something that both of us have actually done at different points when we need extra clarity, or you just know that there's going to be some complexity to a reading, is you can read your tarot cards in conjunction with another divination tool, such as an oracle, runes, ogam, even another tarot deck.
That's all we have on our topic for today. Thank you so much for listening in, and we hope you'll join us again soon. In the meantime, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest for more witchy wisdom, both here and on our blog. And you can also check out our original art on Society 6 for sacred decor and more. Thanks again for joining us. Go make some magic and live your best life.
Bye.